Yeah. Well, that rumor kind of scares me. I mean, because it's like if when I do die and I see a white light and I still have my memory from this lifetime, I'm not going to know what to do because I mean, I want to see my family members, but I also don't want to be trapped and forced into a new life with my memory wiped or whatever and all that crazy possibility. So, like, I don't know. It's a conundrum right there. And, yeah.
The theories in the paranormal are fascinating. I mean, you could go so many places and so many directions, and just that's one thing I think that fascinates me so much. There's nothing impossible when it comes to the paranormal. I mean, the simplest things we don't know, we can't prove, or we can't prove to other people at least. You can't deny your own experiences, and that's one thing that I personally believe in the Haunted Housewives. And when I say the Haunted Housewives, I mean me and my ghost hunting partner, Cathi Weber. We don't really care about evidence. We don't care about proving ghosts to anybody or changing anyone's mind about the paranormal. We're more about the experience and about telling the story and telling the history of the people and the places that are haunted and the people that live there. So that to us is more interesting. But as far as theories and evidence, I mean, anything is possible. If you can live on in some form after you die, why can't aliens be Bigfoot and live in Loch Ness and, I don't know,
right.
Anything's possible, right? Anything can be possible. I don't discount anything. I don't believe most of the stuff I see as far as pictures and videos and EVPs. If I wasn't there, I don't know if I believe it, honestly, and I don't expect people to believe the stuff that I produce either because they weren't there. They don't know me. I could be lying. I could be making it up. So, you know, I don't really care about the proof. I think it's all interesting to me. Hey, sure, why not? Let's hear your theory.
The only proof
it can't be any weirder than the next one.
The only proof is really seeing something with your own two eyes, I think. And even that is just like you still don't know what the hell you're seeing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my husband is a skeptic, but honestly, I would say he's really a non-believer more than a skeptic. Yet he's had these paranormal experiences he just refuses to accept as paranormal. So it's kind of, you know, usually I love that when people have that experience that changes their mind. They go from non-believer or skeptic to believer in a split second because something happens they can't explain. And that, I think, is amazing. But, you know, I'm not out to prove anything to anybody. I can't change your mind.
Yeah,
you know, either you believe me or you don't.
It's not going to happen. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can. I mean, you could still get some really cool, interesting footage and.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that's a lot of fun.
You could have ghost in a jar. People aren't going to believe it, right?
Ghost in a jar. How about that?
Sell it on eBay.
So what is the most, I don't want to say, I guess, what's the most convincing footage or that you've captured as far as video footage or audio?
In all the years I've been doing this, I've caught tons of EVPs, hundreds of EVPs. Some are very clear, and, you know, I can't really pick out one because they happen so often because I do this all the time. Just the other night, we were filming for a little local TV news show, and we were at a place called the Lake County Historical Society, which is an old poorhouse near where I live, and we were doing an EVP session in the dungeons in the basement of this place with these two reporters, and we were trying to contact the last living resident that stayed at this place before it shut down and became a museum. And we asked, can you tell us what your name is? And we got the clearest EVP I think I've had in years. And it said Lucy. And Lucy was the name of the person that lived there. So that was very cool. As far as visual evidence, not nearly as prevalent. I haven't had that many videos or pictures, but on the Willoughby Ghost Walk, I had one of my guests that was doing the ghost walk catch two very compelling pictures of what seems like the same face inside Willoughby Cove, which is a place in our book, and it looks like the same face in different areas at a different angle. And these pictures we tried so hard to debunk. I had probably 34, 35 witnesses that saw him take this picture. There was no one in the building. It's not a reflection. That kind of blew me away. And then again, at this same place, just not even 2 weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago, they captured, my partner, Cathi, captured a video of the stockroom door opening. The stockroom door kept opening. We had a little ghost hunt going on in there. And so they set up a camera to try and catch it, see if it happened again. Sure enough, happened again, right there on video. So to me, those are the most compelling because I'm familiar with this place. I was either there when it happened or I know the people who captured it. So to me, those were the most compelling. As far as stuff that I haven't been, that I actually didn't witness, hard to say. You know, if I wasn't there, I don't know. I've seen some great stuff, but I haven't seen anything that can't be faked.
Right. Sure.
So, I don't know. How do you think this will eventually, when it does become more accepted in society, how do you think that will alter, I guess, religious outlooks and or atheists? How do you think it will change and alter, if it will at all, the entire consciousness, like the collective consciousness, the atheists out there who don't believe anything, the people who are all about, war? Could this bring about a more peaceful society and compassionate and loving society that, less violence and all?
Yeah, that is such a great question, and I would hope that it would. I would hope that people would believe this, but again, you have to remember that we are a Western society and we're Americans, and what we believe is completely different than what they believe over in Asia, what they believe over in the Middle East, and even what they believe in parts of Europe. So what we consider something that, like paranormal, the afterlife, this belief in ghosts, to us is fringe science, is something that is not generally accepted by science. Whereas in other cultures, like in Japan, where I have a son in the Navy, he's in Japan right now, and places like that, it's just accepted that, of course, there are ghosts. Our ancestors are with us all the time. That is just part of their belief system. And in many cultures, it's part of their belief system, too. So in that sense, I don't think worldwide it would change very much. In the United States, I think that we're so stubborn that there's still going to be those people that don't believe. Like I said earlier, there's people who don't believe we landed on the moon. There's people who believe that the government blew up the Twin Towers. So I don't think we'll be changing that many minds. For those who already believe, we'll feel validated. We might change a few minds, but I still think that people will say, yeah, I'm still not buying it. So, I think it's very comforting to believe in life after death and believe in ghosts. I find that very comforting, and I kind of feel sorry for people who don't believe it. What a sad existence, especially if their life isn't so great.
Right. So have you mentioned like UFOs and Bigfoot and all that. Have you actually ever seen any UFOs or anything before?
I thought when I was younger that I saw a UFO, and I was convinced that it was a UFO, and I swore it was a UFO. But now looking back at it as an adult, I'm not really sure because I did live very close to the airport, and what I saw was strange lights right on the path of the planes go by, and at the time I didn't know much about it. So as much as I thought when I was younger that it was a UFO, now as an adult, I think it might have been a plane. So I don't know. I've never seen Bigfoot, but then again, I don't go looking for him either.
Right.
But I tell you, I want to believe in all that stuff. I do believe that, I don't know if there are aliens here and UFOs, but I certainly think that it is possible. I think if it hasn't happened yet, that it will happen. I completely 100% believe that there is life outside of this planet, and that's a no-brainer. There are billions of planets. There has to be life out there. So I think, of course, that must be happening. And if there can be ghosts, if there can be aliens, why can't there be Bigfoot? Why can't there be cryptids? Why can't there be unknown creatures in the ocean? Because we don't know everything. Since when did we think that we knew everything there was to know about the world and the earth? I mean, I just haven't had a personal experience, but I am totally open to believing it. And I hope I do see something someday. What do you think? Do you believe in this stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, UFOs. As much as I believe in ghosts, I mean, I've had quite a few experiences, creepy experiences. One, you know, if they're from a distance, you can think your mind's playing tricks on you. But when one flies directly above you, going, you know, about 40, 50 miles per hour, and it's taking up nearly the whole sky, then that kind of satisfies all doubts. And especially when you witness it with someone who's close with you. I mean, I witnessed it with my aunt, and we had her on the show about a month ago, and so that was a crazy. That night, I had a tough time falling asleep.
There's got to be something to it. I mean, there's so many people that have had these experiences. They can't all be wrong. They can't all be lying just because I haven't seen it. You know, I think it's fantastic. It's an awesome story, especially since you had somebody there with you to validate what happened.
Oh, yeah.
That's
you have
awesome.
to. I mean, otherwise, I mean, if it just happened once in my life and I didn't have someone there with me to experience, then I would doubt it. I would think I dreamt it or something. Mm-hmm. But when it happens again and again and again over time, I mean, most of those experiences happened in 2001, and the first time was actually with my sister in 1997. And then for about 12 or 13 years, nothing happened in that area. And then a few months ago, a couple weeks back to back, it was actually twice. I was thinking about it outside just now. It wasn't 3 times, it was twice recently. And but most of the times I noticed the place that it happened at was actually claimed to be it was claimed that it was on a portal, the house that I was at, that there's an actual vortex of energy on the front, like kind of like the front area there, the glen there. And I've heard before that these UFOs are attracted to these areas, and especially if it's on a ley line, and there's others. There are places, I mean, that people go to that just have more UFO activity than other places, and they all just go there, and you're almost guaranteed to see one. So that might be something you want to, because if you're into ghost hunting and everything, I mean, camping out one night at some place where it's claimed to have a lot of activity, you might be surprised what you see.
What area of the country do you live in? Where is this?
This was in northwestern Jersey, Sussex County. It's not a well-known place. It's not like publicly known. It's the place that I witnessed most of the stuff. But there's a lot of public places that people go to that they'll gather in groups like maybe a dozen people at a time, half a dozen people, and they'll just camp out there and watch, and it's almost guaranteed that they're going to see something. I mean, it's not just outside, what is it, Area 51, where people are going to look, at the base there. It doesn't just happen there. It happens supposedly all around the country. But that time was, up in Sussex County.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, really creepy stuff. And that it's not just UFOs there. I mean, it's not just that sort of power. It's everything paranormal, like all the creepy stuff that you can think of.
You hear that a lot. That it's not just one type of activity or one type of phenomenon happening in these areas, like places like you said, maybe they're supercharged or something.
Yeah. That's got to be what it is or something. It was claimed that a psychic, when they got the place, it was claimed that a psychic went there and slashed some stones around and charged the area, and she claimed that there was already like a portal in the area or something. Like right there in front of the house, so that's kind of that's what the claim was. I don't doubt it.
Jeff, you have some crazy stories. Hey, I'm on the line now.
Good.
Something's going on with Blog Talk Radio. Eric has been trying to call back, and he's been
Eric's trying to call.
So I'm gonna have to dial up to him, but this is kind of annoying. But hi, Theresa.
Hi. How are you?
Sorry I couldn't connect you earlier. I kept trying to connect, and I saw that you were calling, but it wouldn't let me connect you, and very frustrated over here.
Did I get the time wrong? I was told 10 o'clock. What's going on? And Eric likes to talk, so I thought maybe he was just talking, and there was just no room for me tonight.
I think we got it taken care of now. At this point,
Excellent.
we do. Eric brought up how Blog Talk Radio was starting to get better, and then this happened, so I think he jinxed us.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we've had issues with Blog Talk for our show as well. So.
We have too. So,
but we love Blog Talk, don't we?
Not to jump in and butt in, but I've been sitting here listening. At least I got to listen. I played the live stream, and I'm sitting here listening to you guys, trying to fix everything, and so I am kind of caught up with what you guys are talking about. But something I wanted to bring up, because you guys, in your book, which I received yesterday, so I haven't got to read the whole thing. I did start it, but I did kind of skim through it. I had a list of all the places in there. Something that interests me is the Stanley Hotel, and I bring that up because, one, I'm a big Stephen King fan, as Mark is, and I think Jeff is too. But Mark and I are both from Maine also. Stephen King's from Maine. So I figured that we would bring this up, and I'm curious, as you went to the hotel now, did you, I just want to know what you found out when you went there. I'm really curious about that.
Well, the Stanley is one of the two places in the book that I did not go to myself.
Okay.
The reason we put it in the book is because of the sheer amount of paranormal activity that happens there, the reputation, and the fact that I did know enough people that I trust implicitly that had stories to share with me. And, of course, I am also a big, huge Stephen King fan. So I thought that we could still write a compelling chapter, even though it's one of the two places I had not had an experience at because I've not personally been there. It's hard. If somebody was paying me to ghost hunt, I could go all over the country and go to these places. But, nobody's shelling out any money for me to ghost hunt yet. So, but the Stanley itself is not only interesting because of its history and interesting because of the Stephen King connection, but even just the geography there is fascinating. And that's one of those places that's super haunted, incredibly beautiful, not creepy at all in the sense that you would think of maybe the Ohio State Reformatory being a dilapidated place, or Waverly Hills, or Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. It's a beautiful, beautiful, magnificent hotel. And it's a very happy place, yet there's all this history of things that happen there and the rumors of the haunting. And the one thing that we found fascinating is that people claim, and these are some scientists, claim that part of the reason it is so paranormally charged there is because of the geography, the piezoelectric effect, that just the geography itself kind of acts as a battery and fuels or magnifies the paranormal activity there. So absolutely couldn't leave it out of the book. And our friends Jonathan and Frank from Adventure Myths did a great job, made a great documentary that was convincing enough for me that, even though I hadn't stepped in the place myself, absolutely wanted to put it in the book, and I'm so glad we did.
So Theresa, let me ask you, out of everything that you have experienced, and I think I asked Eric the same question, what's the most creepiest or the most intriguing for you? What sticks out the most for you?
The creepiest place I've ever been is probably, and I think Eric would probably agree, is the Ohio State Reformatory at Mansfield, and that is the prison that people know as the Shawshank Redemption Prison. That was where they filmed that movie.
Oh, wow.
And all the exterior shots in that movie are the prison, and when they filmed that movie, that was still an open, working prison. Now it is closed. It's been closed since 1990, but the front of it looks like a castle, like a Gothic castle, and the back of it is this incredibly creepy, decrepit, rusting, scary place with the cell blocks. It's really amazing. So you have those two textures, that balance of light and dark, where part of it where the superintendents and the wardens lived was beautiful and opulent and elegant, and then where the prisoners were, it was sheer hell. So that place is amazing. It's huge. It's the biggest place in the book, and it has over 100 years of history. So what started off as a place for juvenile offenders became a maximum security prison for the worst, the dredges of society. And there were murders, and there were rapes, and there was violence upon violence there. And then there was that one element that we look for in the book, which is that mystery, that mysterious death, that urban legend. Could we prove this haunting? Could we prove that this so-called ghost that's associated with this place has a basis in history or not? But my personal experiences there have been many. I've been there hundreds of times, and I've actually volunteered there as in the archives department. So I've never been there and had nothing happen. Every time I've been there. And that's the first place I was actually touched by a ghost many years ago.
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask you, can we have an example? You was actually touched by a ghost.
I had my hair pulled by something very violently. My head yanked back 3 times by something, to the point where I just thought it was a person. I thought it was my girlfriend that I was investigating with at the time. And I'm like, ha ha, very funny. You know, I was mad that she was pulling my hair. She was nowhere near me. She was far behind me. And that was kind of, I had an epiphany at that moment. I'm like, if they can pull your hair, what else can they do? Can they throw me down the stairs? Can they punch me in the stomach? I mean, this is a whole new level of scariness right there.
Yeah, my cousin got pushed once by a ghost.
See, I was always under the understanding that they can't really, do harm to you like that.
And speaking of another creepy thing about that place is there's a spirit that we believe we picked up at Mansfield Prison that attached to Cathi, my partner, Cathi Weber, and followed her home, and is still with us to this day, because after that night that we ran into this spirit, his voice, his same exact voice, was showing up on EVPs at different places all over the country that we were ghost hunting at.
Oh, wow.
And even showed up at her house one night. And the
dreaded Mike Evans.
Yes. Very negative spirit, very negative entity, and very creepy.
Well, speaking of physical interaction, I just wanted to add, while Theresa and I were at the Ohio State Reformatory, kind of doing the first official interview, actually, I think, of the book when we were down there, because that was our first chapter. That was the one we wrote up to be our sample chapter to get the book deal in the first place. But the head tour guide down there was taking us through, and Theresa was talking about the front there, which was the living quarters, which were much, much nicer. I mean, it's hard to believe, really. You kind of step from one world into another when you enter the prison itself. But he was actually, not when we were with him, but previous to that, he was punched so hard in the stomach by an unseen entity that he doubled over, and he actually had to go to the doctor, and there was clear bruising. So, yeah, it really is an eye-opener to find out, very vividly, personally, as Theresa did with her hair being pulled, and this guy named Scott being punched right in the stomach by an invisible entity, that they can interact with you. In fact, they can harm you. And what that leads me to think is, well, what about things that we just don't even know about? Have people been killed? Have people been pushed downstairs? Have people been, induced to commit suicide? I mean, who knows what? It really opens up a very frightening door when you realize that there can be physical interaction.
That's why I commend you guys for doing this, because I just don't have the courage to go to some of these places. I won't. I can't.
Especially like there's what is it? Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Is that one that you went to?
Oh yeah, Trans-Allegheny is an amazing place. That was in western West Virginia. It was designed to be a place for people who had mental illness to go, because before these places were built around the country, they were either ignoring people with mental illness or they were locking them up in prison with rapists and murderers. So these places were designed to help people, and in fact, Trans-Allegheny was designed, even in the building, the architecture itself was designed to be aesthetically pleasing to people, and this was the reformation of the mental illness movement. People would recognize it as a real disease, but it wasn't long before good intentions went straight to hell, and these places became overcrowded, understaffed and underfunded, and they became the worst kind of prison in their own right. And what they would do to these people to keep them calm, besides restraining them, is in many cases they would give them lobotomy, because that was one way to keep them docile. And Trans-Allegheny was, like many places across the nation, notorious for doing that. It's tragic, sad, horrible place with murders and just all sorts of horrible things happened over its very long and dark history. And it's very sad because it started off as such a good idea, but, at the time you could also commit somebody for any reason at all. I mean, your husband didn't like you, he could commit you to the lunatic asylum because you disagreed with him. So.
And Charles Manson was actually there, I believe, right?
Charles, I'd never heard that.
Yeah, I was checking that out. He was there for a little while. But I also read that...
Really? That did not come up in our research at all.
Yeah, that's what... I don't know if it was a video. I think it might have been something maybe from a video from something on the Travel Channel. But they brought up Charles Manson, and also said that they used to hold high school proms there because there was a ballroom.
Oh yeah, it was a great in Western West Virginia, where Trans-Allegheny is. This was the center of town. This is what pretty much fueled the town. This was the main employer. This was their commerce. The hospital was the business of Weston, and the city of Weston kind of lived and died with the hospital itself. And yeah, they would rent out their auditorium and their ballroom for dances and proms, all sorts of events, up until the year it closed.
That's interesting about Manson. I'm wondering, this must have been prior to the infamous murders, probably prior to him even moving out to L.A., because he was in and out of prison his whole life.
I'm just kind of surprised that we didn't find that in any of our research, and nobody at Trans-Allegheny knew that either. That never came up when we
maybe they weren't bragging about it.
Yeah, it says it was.
Maybe
it was only there for a brief time. So.
Well, it's really interesting. Theresa and I were just talking today. I was telling you guys earlier what an amazingly, bizarrely busy day we've had. First I was doing this radio tour in the early morning, and then Theresa kind of took over and did her own. So between the two of us, we did something like 20 of these things, and then all this other stuff was going on throughout the day. It was just really one of those days. But we were talking about, hey, the book has only been out for a month. I mean, I guess it's a month today, right? At least calendar month.
Yeah.
And so, that's not very long. But, of course, what you have to remember is we basically turned it in. I mean, we were finished. Yeah, there was some editing and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But a year ago, we were finished a year ago. So the material in there is already that old. And we were just kind of recounting, there's already lots of things in there, little bits and pieces and facts and whatever, that we would want to change and we would want to update. There's lots of things that's been going on in this last year, but I mean, you're stuck with it. It's still kind of the old media. It's not the fluid digital age where you can change anything at any time. When we were talking earlier about me working on the internet and writing for the internet and all that, I mean, I can go back into any story I've ever written as long as I still have access to it and make a change. I can edit something. I can fix a typo. I can update whatever. But with books, you're still kind of stuck with what's there until you literally do an update of it. And I hope that we can somewhere down the line. Of course, we also want to do additional books in the series, and we're already talking about that. As soon as next week, we hope to kind of start pitching for what's coming up next, because no grass will grow under our feet.
Sure. Went to the asylum there. All I can think of is ghosts with mental illness.
Yeah.
Well, imagine that.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. I am. As I was listening to Theresa talk, I'm thinking to myself, yeah. I mean, you have these spirits or identities or whatnot that have had, in their real life had serious mental issues. And I'm thinking they probably would pass along into the afterlife, and just the imagine the possibilities that could bring.
have a lot of very unhappy ghosts. That's for sure. I mean, the personality doesn't change, I believe, when a person dies. So if you were mentally ill when you were alive, yeah, you'll probably be a mad spirit, I would imagine. Could be wrong, but and that's kind of the activity that happens at Trans-Allegheny. It's kind of crazy and all over the place, and a little bit of everything.
Teresa, I'm just, because I can, while we're sitting here talking, I just did a search for Charles Manson, Trans-Allegheny. There are about 36,000 results, and everyone says, yes, he was there.
Everyone, as far as, like, every
result from the search says that he briefly stayed there.
Are they people from Tala saying that, or just people on the internet saying that?
Well, these are stories. These are articles of one kind or another. I mean, there seems to be a consensus. I mean, I'm not saying it's an absolute fact, but it's saying Charles Manson, blah 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 blah. What I was trying to figure out is if it was before or after, because I think we would have known
murders.
If it was after the murders, because then he was so famous. Anywhere he would have gone. But again, I know that his whole life leading up to that, he had been institutionalized much of his life. And that period where he was kind of running the family and hobnobbing with all the stars out in L.A., with the Beach Boys and Terry Melcher and all these people who felt very stupid after the fact. I think he even met Paul McCartney at one point. But anyway, once that became that was like his longest period, I think, where he didn't, wasn't institutionalized while he's plotting and developing this band of homicidal lunatics. Yeah, I just pulled one that looked more sort of reputable than another. It was one of these answer sites, and they didn't really have a whole lot. I'm trying to find any kind of actual dates or anything like that. But anyway, that's very interesting. That's certainly, if it does prove to be true, or even if it doesn't, equally interesting if it doesn't prove to be true, because that's yet another thing that we were able to do with the book. By doing the research that we did and by really looking for original sources, not just taking the internet at face value, which so many people do, but try to get to those original sources, we were able to debunk a number of these legends that are told just routinely at these various places. They all or almost all have tours. They all, they kind of have a party line that they teach to the people. And, a lot of that, or at least some of that information is it's just not true. And we were able to kind of figure that out. It was equally interesting and fun that some of the kind of less likely tales, at least we thought, on the surface, did have a basis in reality. That was amazing to find out that the kind of the famous story told by DJ Fly in that Ghost Adventures episode from the Ohio State Reformatory, and he's talking about the guy in the cell next to him and how he lit himself on fire and burned himself up, and they're pulling out pieces of charred flesh from the guy, and he almost died from the smoke, and on and on and on. It just sounded insane, and you know what? It happened. That really happened. I interviewed the guard who hauled the guy out of there.
Wow.
And it absolutely did happen. A guy lit himself on fire in his cell, and he died. He melted, basically. And so that was wild, to find out that was true. Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. So anyway, it was interesting to be able to say, okay, this one really isn't true. As I was telling you guys, talking about earlier with Bobby Mackey's, there's the whole tale about the portal to hell, which is just really rather unimpressive, dirt hole in the floor of the basement there. It was actually looked a little more impressive this last time we were there. Teresa and I were down there for a book opening event that first week, that Friday of the first week after the book was out. And for some reason, the hole looked a little more impressive that time. Part of it's the angle. You got to get the shadows right so it looks creepy. But as I was saying, there is no evidence whatsoever that there was ever any satanic activity there. It is almost certain that Pearl's head was not tossed down there. It is almost certain that Pearl's head was tossed into the Ohio River off a bridge. And there's basically no connection that we could make between Pearl and that building or this hole, in the basement. It probably is not the portal to hell. But that does not change the fact that that area of that building is very, very active. So something's going on there. We just don't know necessarily what the source of it is or why that's happening there. It's probably not Pearl. It's probably not the murderers. It's a cultural study. It shows how do these stories get passed on, and they become embellished and they become changed a little bit here and there. It's like a game of telephone. And that was part of one of the things that we were trying to sort out, to kind of get at the fact from the legend.
No kidding. And Theresa, you said there was 2 places in the book that you didn't go to. What was the other one?
The other place I didn't go to was the Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa.
That's the one I was just going to ask about, too. That one seems... I watched something on TV a while back about it. I haven't... as I remember, there was 8 people killed there? Women?
8 people, 6 children and 2 adults axed to death while they slept, and the murder was never solved. So a very sad place, tiny little place, 400-square-foot house, itty-bitty, tiny little Iowa farmhouse where this horrible tragedy happened. This was such big news, it wiped the Titanic off the headlines in that part of the country. I mean, wow. This was bizarre. And again, this is one of the places that we had this mysterious urban legend about it that we needed to find out if we could dig up any sort of documentation or basis in fact. And I talked to the expert. I interviewed him extensively twice, and he's called the Axeman, Dr. Ed Epperly. And even he says he doesn't know who did this horrible murder. He keeps wavering back and forth between suspects of who he believes. He goes, one day I think it was this guy, another day I believe it was this guy, and then I personally think that it was somebody completely different. So we don't know, but all that tragedy, all that death in this tiny little place, and that energy is going to imprint itself in that place. It has to. There's something going on there, and it's very, very sad place. I don't even know if I'd really want to go there. That I want to go there obviously because I'm interested in the ghosts, but I think it might be, as a mother, it might be too much. It might be too overwhelmingly sad for me.
Right. Well, from what I saw, the person that went into the children's room said that was like the saddest part. I mean, she actually started crying because she could just feel how the children felt or whatever. So
I think it would be very hard not to have empathy for the family that died there, the 2 Stillinger children that were just visiting that night. They just were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the Moore children that lived there and their family. And you can't, as a human, as a mother, I couldn't walk in there and not be overwhelmed with sadness, I think. So what would compel somebody to do such a thing? I mean, why? What was the purpose of it? It wasn't robbery. It's just very sad, a very terrible, terrible thing. The only private residence in our book, the smallest place in our book for sure. But now it's a museum, so it is open for ghost hunters and for visitors to tour it. And, a sad way to remember this town, for Villisca to be known, but it's known nonetheless, and it actually is helping to keep the town going because it's a little tiny town, and having the ghost hunters come in and people come and visit, it's commerce. It's an industry.
So, Theresa, you mentioned a little while ago about how it doesn't really necessarily matter what time it is, or as far as activity goes. Is that really true? I mean, is there more activity, like say in the middle of the night, like 3:00 in the morning, like the witches' hour, as they call it? No.
I don't believe that for one second. I believe that the reason that the paranormal and ghosts got the reputation for coming out at night is, well, because it's scarier at night. To tell a ghost story in the dark is obviously more scary than to tell it in broad daylight. But the one thing, and of course then the ghost hunting shows have perpetuated this myth that you can only ghost hunt in the dark. But I think that the one thing about it is At night, in the dark, there isn't a lot of distraction. There's not a lot of noise outside.
Right.
There isn't a lot of things to catch your eye in the dark because you're not using that sense so much. So you will be able to see differences in the dark, in the shadows. And your ears are going to become more attuned because you're not relying on your eyes. So in that sense, I think that there is advantages to ghost hunting in the dark and at night, but it's not necessary.
Okay.
They're still there during the day.
You would know. I mean, you've done this many times. So thank you for clarifying that. That's awesome. Okay.
And Jeff,
hey guys, we're just realizing that this is, like I said, among the longest days that ever were, and tomorrow being Halloween, there's all kinds of madness that still needs to be attended to, and I actually got to get up, which, man, I hate doing. I am a night person, period. I got to get up and drive 200 miles down to Springfield, Ohio, to speak at Wittenberg University at noon tomorrow. And so I got to get up and have a fairly clear head, and I got to do a little bit of research, because you know what one of my subtopics besides just talking about the book, obviously, and how groovy I am, and now I'm a world famous author and all this kind of stuff, and you too, students, can turn out just like me. But I got to talk about the relationship between philosophy and the paranormal. So yes, one of my 3 majors in college was philosophy, but that was a long, long time ago. So I got to read a couple philosophy books. I got to skim through my philosophy books and just remember these people's names and what their basic theories are, because there's going to be a philosophy class attending my lecture. So I can't be too big an idiot when it comes to the names of philosophers and their theories. So I guess what I'm saying is,
kids, so I gotta go. I gotta get off the line. I got little kids. I gotta keep them up. Busy day tomorrow. So
well, I guess she does.
Great,
hello.
Great talking to you all, but I gotta say goodnight. So thank you so much, guys.
And thank you for coming on, Theresa.
Theresa, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great Halloween.
You too.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Eric.
Lots of fun. Like I said, I love being able to just stretch out and blab and have conversations and not have to worry too much about the whole soundbite phenomena, which was all the rage this morning. So I really appreciate it. Love to come back on anytime. Absolutely. So many more things to talk about. I'd like to ask you guys more questions about some of your experiences, because they sound very, very interesting. And I, like you, I'm not 100% okay with all this stuff. As I said earlier, I kind of am resolved. I've kind of reserved, I think, about half of my ability to open or close my receptivity to these things, and I think I only have it about a halfway open, or maybe even less than halfway open, because sure, I want to be able to experience these things and write about these things, and it is fascinating and it is amazing, but it's also still scary.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're not kidding. And I think what we were talking about earlier.
I can't be completely.
You can if you protect yourself. You can.
Yes, I do think you can.
You can.
I do think you can. I think it's very important that you do so. And even if it's something very simple and rudimentary, like just simply stating your intention out loud, you will not follow me. You are not welcome. You must stay here. Just things like that. And if you are religious, certainly it does not hurt to add in a little prayer, Probably even if you're not religious, it does not hurt to add in a little prayer and ask for some help on that front. But I think the main thing you need to do is state your intention very firmly. I think you need to let these things know, whatever that method is, however they pick up on your intention, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. I think you really need to very firmly let them know that you're in charge, you're the living, you're the boss, this is your world, and no, you do not have permission to follow me out of this place.
Both ways work, by the way, verbal and if you're just thinking it. Apparently, they're receptive to your thoughts as well.
I think so. I think if you think about just what would the physical mechanism be whereby you would interact with these entities, which almost certainly are just some form of energy that we don't understand yet. And if you think about it, it would really only be through telepathy, through psychic means, because there's no physical thing there, right?
Right.
It's just some sort of conglomeration of energy and perhaps consciousness. That seems to be certainly some degree of consciousness there. So how would you interact? Well, it would have to be mind to mind, I think. Right. We had a guest on about a year ago on our show, and that was his theory, and I thought it was fascinating. He said all interaction between the living world and the world of spirits, the paranormal world, in his opinion, has to be psychic. That's the only way.
Yeah. Through the thoughts.
Which I think makes a lot of sense. But then, of course, that's contradicted by the kind of physical interaction that Theresa was talking about, that she herself has, in fact, experienced. All right, guys, well, we could go on. I could go on forever. You've probably picked up on that. I blab a lot. Sorry if I talk too much.
You're awesome.
Thanks, and I appreciate it. And you guys are too. And like I said, happy to come back on. Lots of fun. Happy to chat away about anything, man. I got opinions on everything
we gotta have you
that ever was.
Oh, definitely.
As you heard, including, no, that's not the Blue Oyster Cult. That's not the original recording. What are you doing? Okay, good night, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it, and have a great rest of the show. And again, really look forward to talking to you again when it fits your schedule.
All right.
For sure, man. Great. Enjoy your Halloween.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.